Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Maddie Hennessy. I am the Marketing and Membership Services Director with the Independent Garage Owners of North Carolina, IGONC for short. And I'm here today to have a lunch and learn with Miss Charlene Parlett, and we are ready to go for ATI's Lunch and Learn.
Awesome. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for having me. So we're going to talk about something near and dear to my heart. I am a previous shop owner, and now I work with ATI as a coach. So I've been on both sides of that conversation. And the one area that pretty regularly I see as a challenge for shop owners is this one right here on your screen. Setting expectations and holding our employees accountable to those expectations. What I find is we have in our heads what we think our technicians or our service advisors should be achieving, what we think they should be capable of. Sometimes we forget that we got to tell them, that's really what setting expectations is all about. So we're going to go through this. I'm going to leave time at the end for any questions that come up. And I am going to give some specifics. Every shop is a little bit different, but I do want to take some time at the end if you have any specific questions on what we go over. So I like to make sure we're all on the same page. We're all defining terms the same way. So that's why I've got the definition of expectations on the screen. The act or state of expecting, I don't know about you, but when I was in school, they didn't like us to use the word we were defining in the definition. The dictionary does it. So I added in here that it also includes anticipation and assurance. So what I like to look at is when we have an expectation, it's something we anticipate and believe is a real possibility. We have the assurance that the goal we're setting, the expectation we're setting is something that that employee can achieve. There's a lot of things that have to go into figuring out what that expectation should look like. So first, who should set those expectations? I really do feel that the owner, or if you have a shop manager, the manager, is the person who sets these expectations. And there's a lot of different criteria that go into how do you set an expectation. I'm going to go into some specifics related to technicians, but when we talk about service advisors, it really depends on the team you have. What can the team achieve? Are you expecting the service advisor to hit certain sales goals? Are you expecting them to keep their pricing on certain points, such as parts margin, labor margin? But when we talk about technicians, some of the criteria that has to come into play for you to set an expectation for a tech is, of course, first and foremost, skill level. I have different expectations depending on the skill level of my technicians. So in general, for your ATEC, what we would call an ATEC is your master tech, primarily the person that is doing most of your diagnostics or even your diagnostic specialist. My expectation is at that skill set, they should be capable of no less than a 1-to-1 clock hour to build hour. So if they're on the clock for 40 billable hours a week, I'm expecting them to be able to knock out 40 billable hours a week at a minimum. I recognize that if we're using them primarily as a diag tech, that may be right in line with what they're able to achieve. If they're in a position where they do some diagnostic and some repair work, my expectation is that's closer to 1.2, 1.5. So I'm looking for more than 1 billable hour for each hour that they're on the clock. But in general, unless they're doing nothing but diag, or they are in a position where they are a technician mentor training an apprentice, then I'm looking at a team goal, and maybe I'm okay with a little bit lower productivity, but as a team, I'm expecting them and their apprentice to really be hitting some pretty strong goals. But I've got to communicate what those goals are. If it's a B-level tech, what we refer to as a B tech is that R&R specialist. They aren't necessarily doing a lot of diag. They're not doing any high-end diag that you are paying that master tech to do, but they are the rock star when it comes to remove and replace. Once they know what the vehicle needs, they are on it. And my expectation from them is if they're on the clock for 40 hours a week, I'm expecting them to be capable of billing me out somewhere between 40 and 50 billable hours. Occasionally, I'm going to see that person push even higher. I have a couple shops where their B-Tech knocks out 60 a week, but I'm really shooting for about 50. And you have to have the right mix of work. Again, we're talking about skill set, and we're going to be looking at a lot of other factors as well. But that in general is what I'm expecting from that B-level tech. That's not doing a bunch of diag work, but once they know what the vehicle needs, they are at or better than build time getting the work out the door. They're highly efficient. Your C-Tech, this is the person who's kind of in that transition. They're doing more than general service work. They're doing more than tire and lube work, more than general maintenance work. They are starting to do some repair work, general repair work, nothing too in-depth. They may be this person who's an apprentice and a helper to that master tech as well. My goal with that person is that for every hour they're on the clock, they're going to bill out somewhere between 0.5 and 0.75 billable hours. Occasionally, depending on the kind of work that they're getting, they might do better than that. But in general, I'm shooting for 20 to 30 billable hours in a typical 40-hour week. Part of that is their skill set, and part of that is the kind of work that I'll be giving that individual, especially if I don't have a general service tech on board as well. So that's the final skill set, general service tech, entry level. Really with that person, my goal is get as much done as they can and do it right and do it without any chance of a comeback for any crazy reason. So if they're on the clock for 40 hours, I'm looking for somewhere between 10 and 20 billable hours. Again, because they're a lower level skill set, but I'm also, that person is the one I'm sending all of my tire work to and all of my oil changes to. So it would be unrealistic to expect them to give you a billable hour for every hour they're on the clock. So that has to be part of what we look at when we set expectations, is based on the kind of work this person is going to be assigned, what can they achieve? But that's not the only thing that has to be considered. One of the other things that I really want you to look at is do an assessment with each one of your techs and identify with them what are their training needs. So training may be, I have no idea how to do this, I need to learn everything about it, or hey, I know how to do it, I'm not very efficient, I need some training to become more efficient, to be able to get it done in the time that you want it done. It has to be part of the conversation before you set these expectations. Next, you need to look at your facility and your equipment. For example, if you're in an older facility, if you still have pits, that's going to have an impact on your technician's ability to get the work done. Are they climbing in and out of a pit? Do you have some equipment that it's a little past its prime? They have to do a good bit of maintenance on it. They are needing to constantly replace parts because the equipment is older, or maybe it's just older and it takes longer. That's definitely going to have an impact on what can you expect from each one of your technicians. Next, I'm looking at previous performance. So maybe I've never set expectations, and this is going to be something new that I'm doing in my shop. I may have a B-Tech that, because I've never had this conversation, he's been averaging 30 billable hours a week. And I really want to get him to 40. At least that's the first goal. Their previous performance does need to come into play, because historically, how do they perform? Is this going to be a huge jump? If they're going from 30 and suddenly you're saying, well, I want you to knock out 50 hours a week, that can be very overwhelming for your tech. They may be very capable of it, but you've never told them that you're dissatisfied with the 30 hours. So you need to look at this because you may need to address it as problems that need to be fixed, efficiencies that need to be fixed. Again, sometimes it's an issue where the technician has some bad habits. Sometimes it has nothing to do with the technician. They just have never been told this is what you want from them. And then they can have that conversation with you about what do they need, training-wise, equipment-wise, to be able to achieve that goal. Needs of the shop. If you're a shop that is doing a whole lot of heavy repair work, then you probably are not necessarily going to have a general service tech as a go-to. If you're a shop that has a pretty good balance of repair work to maintenance work, then the needs of your shop are going to be slightly different. You need a different skill set in the shop. So it's something that you need to have an evaluation of. Take a look at what you're billing out, what kind of work is coming in the door, and do you want to make a change? Perhaps you want to increase your maintenance sales. That may change the plan that you have for the future for hiring and the expectations you'll be setting for both your current employees and your new hires. Okay. Next is personal and professional goals. I don't know that we have these conversations at all, so we certainly don't have conversations about what are their personal goals and what are their professional goals. If I have a general service tech who really does not want to make a long-term career of being a technician, that has an impact on what kind of expectations I'm going to set for them. If they've started in this career and they want to grow, they want to ultimately become that ATech, then I want to be able to provide them with training, with a plan of action, with a vision for how I'm going to get them from where they are today to where they want to be. But I have to have that conversation. I have to know what is it that they want to achieve. Are they satisfied with where they're at in their career right now? Do they want to grow? If I have a master tech, what are they looking for? Are they looking to grow their skills? Do they want to become more familiar with hybrids and electrical vehicles? You know, on a side note, it's absolutely necessary that we provide ongoing education to our technicians all the time, because no matter what side of the country you're on, these vehicles are coming, and they're going to be a bigger and bigger part of our industry as we move into the next 25 years. I don't want to be caught behind. I don't want to have a shop where none of my techs are familiar with how to work on these vehicles and the different safety precautions. But again, let's have that conversation. And then, you know, why do we care about personal goals? Well, personal goals really can have an impact on what your team members achieve and what they want to achieve. If they have a personal goal of buying a home, then being able to show them how achieving the expectations you're setting with them will lead to that personal goal can be very powerful. If they are looking to, you know, get married, have a family, if they have a hobby they absolutely love, but it requires time off and some money to really enjoy that hobby, again, those personal goals can become part of helping them achieve those expectations that you want for them, because they can see how you're trying to help them achieve personal goals as part of growing at the shop. These last two, expected workflow, really, it touches on what I said earlier. Are you expecting to continue to grow in heavy repair work? Are you expecting to balance that out with maintenance work? Do you have a niche market that you focus on, like classic vehicles, or you only work on European, something like that? All of that is part of what needs to come into play when you're setting these expectations, because if the technicians you currently have are not ready for that expected workflow or the change in workflow, then you need to start talking with them about what do they need in order to get prepared for that. Do they need more training? Do we need more people? What I normally find is if we've never had these conversations, we've never set these expectations, a lot of times a shop that's telling me they need another tech may not really need another tech. They need to improve the technicians they have, or they need to set these expectations. And last but not least, they need to work on their shop culture. So you hear culture and engagement as buzzwords a lot in the industry right now. There's a reason. There's a very legitimate reason. Study after study indicates that when you have a strong, positive culture in your shop, when you have a business where the employees feel valued, where they do believe that you sincerely are looking out for what's best for them, when they believe that you are going to hold everyone equally accountable to perform, to produce, to have the right attitude at work, it makes a tremendous difference in the productivity of your entire team. All of us have had the experience where we hired the person who looked great on paper. They might even be our most productive person, and they had a terrible temper problem, or they were just the grumpiest person we'd ever met. And every day they came in and just poisoned the atmosphere in our shop. It has an impact on the rest of the team. I know me personally, in my shop, I had that person, and I struggled with knowing that they were really a problem for the rest of my team. When I was just on the line of really having that thought in my head, gee, you know, he's the most productive tech I have, but, and that but kept coming up, I had two of my other technicians come to me privately and tell me that they were looking for other employment because they just couldn't work in that environment anymore. That was my wake-up call. It was a painful wake-up call. But I can tell you almost immediately, once that person was no longer in my shop, the other technicians' productivity dramatically improved because they recognized that I valued them enough to make this change, and they wanted to give me their best as a result. So I want to give you a few examples of what I mean when I talk about shop culture and fundamentals. So here at ATI, we have what we call our fundamentals. There's something that we regularly go over. There's something that has been ingrained in the culture of our business, and they become our North Star when we have a conflict or when we have a question on why something's being done the way it's being done. So I've just given you 4 examples, and I call them guiding principles. Down there in the bottom left is the resource that this came out of. It really was an experience where our executive team read this book, really felt like it was of great value, and came together, decided what our fundamentals would be, and implemented that in very meaningful ways in our business. So for the examples I gave you is be performance driven, and right under that is a explanation of what that particular fundamental means. Set and ask for expectations. That is one of our guiding principles here at ATI. Every employee knows what the expectation is for them, what we would like them to achieve, and we encourage them to let us know, what do you need in order to achieve these expectations on your side? Listen generously. You know, it's really something that all of us need to get better at. We are fantastic sometimes at talking to customers. We build great rapport with our external customers, as we would call them. But sometimes what we drop the ball on is listening generously and really hearing from our internal customers, our team members, about what they need, about anything that they see that we could improve upon to just make this a better place to work. And then the last but not least, we're all in the customer service business. That really is fundamental of our industry. We take care of people by taking care of their vehicles. We are providing a service that's of value to individuals in our community. And we want to recognize that for us as the owners, part of what customer service means is taking care of our team and making sure that they feel like we value them. and that we want to make sure that every day they look forward to coming to work. Okay, so we've really covered expectations, how to set those, how to evaluate if the expectations are realistic that you want to set with your team. So let's talk about accountability. So this is the other side of that coin. And the definition here says the quality or state of being accountable. Again, the definition's using the term, but especially an obligation or willingness to accept responsibility or to account for one's actions. And I think this definition is really important because a lot of times what we say is we're going to hold our employees accountable. We're going to hold our team members accountable. But really what this definition is telling us is that the person who sets accountability is the employee. It's that individual. We can help them, but really it's up to them whether they are willing to be accountable for those expectations. And they have to give you that feedback. They have to be willing to say, yes, I believe I can achieve that. Yes, I plan to achieve that. Yes, I have what I need in order to achieve those expectations. So there really are three important factors that go into whether a team member, an employee, is going to be willing to be accountable to those expectations. First is attitude. It's one of those things we can't teach. We can teach skills if they've got the right ability to learn the work, if they can, put what's in their head into their hands. We can teach them skills. We cannot teach attitude. It's a personal choice. So the questions I have when somebody is not in a positive attitude, is giving some pushback, really are, do they want to be here? Do they want to be on this team? Do they want to be a productive part of this team? Do they want to do a great job? I already talked about the example of how a negative attitude can be a cancer in your shop, and it impacts everybody. So when we're looking at this, we want to make sure that the people on our team have the right attitude that helps us be a high performance team, helps everybody get what they need out of the team and working together. Second issue with accountability is priorities. Do they have the priorities that you have? What do they value? We talked about, some of their personal goals will also come and identify these priorities. Not everyone is money motivated. We find that, older technicians, older service advisors, they're very money motivated. It's part of how they were brought up. Whereas with the younger technicians and younger service advisors, a lot of them, their priority is family time. They want time off. They would rather earn comp time than more money. And you need to be aware of that because you're setting these expectations and asking them to be accountable, but we need to tie it in with what's important to them. If having a good, secure retirement is part of their priorities, do we provide an avenue to help them with that? Do they have interests that are within the community, like, the spiritual ones or volunteer areas? Again, even those hobbies. If those priorities can be tied in with those expectations, it's more likely that the employee will want to be accountable, will want to achieve them. So again, both professional and personal priorities need to be considered. Okay, and last but not least is learned behaviors. So this is sometimes things like just wrong belief systems. I have run into technicians who were high-level master techs who had never worked in a shop that prioritized maintenance. And there were certain maintenance services that they just didn't believe in. And I would ask them, okay, well, I understand you don't believe in it. I understand that that's why you don't want to recommend it. I need to understand why you don't believe in it. So do you have data to back up what you're telling me about that service? Most of the time it was experiential and it was very limited. So you have to be able to address that and say, okay, well, let me show you why I believe in it. Let me show you why I believe it's beneficial to our customers, and really do address why they believe what they believe so that you can help them make a change. Some of the other things to think about: learned behaviors. If we haven't taught them that greasy fingerprints on the car door is not acceptable, we can't set an expectation until we've identified, are there learned behaviors that need to change? Do they have poor personal hygiene? I've run into this as well. Do we have a criteria for the condition of their uniforms and how that's to be worn? Because everything speaks, and our technicians most likely are out in the community for lunch, and the way they present themselves is a reflection on our shop. If they're professional in their appearance, if they are courteous to the people that are serving them, that says a lot to the community about the kind of shop we're running and the kind of people that work for us. But learned behavior has to be identified, and it has to be addressed. One of the things I don't see very often anymore is inappropriate posters, inappropriate things in a toolbox. We have to be mindful of the fact that, A, we have a much more diverse work environment. The industry is not all male anymore like it was 20, 30 years ago. It very much is a mixed environment. And for a lot of shops, we find that 50 to 70% of your customers happen to be female. So you need to be mindful of taking a look around the shop and making sure that there's nothing like that in view. Might need to address it. It's not because anybody's a good person or a bad person, but we have to unlearn some things that maybe 30 years ago we didn't even bat an eye at. Today it's not acceptable, and we need to make sure that we're communicating that. So what were they taught in the past? What's impacting their beliefs? What's impacting their work processes? Maybe they don't know that there's a much better way to do something, and that's impacting their efficiency. It's impacting their ability to get the job done in a much faster way. Okay, but when we address these three, it tends to be what gets them to a place where they are very happy to be held to a high standard and to be accountable for their actions. So I've just spent a good bit of time pointing out that really the person who has to hold themselves accountable is the employee, but that doesn't mean that the owner doesn't have a role in that. So the owner is the person, or the manager is the person who helps hold them accountable. You know, they've indicated that they're in agreement. They've indicated that they want to achieve those expectations you've set. They've indicated that they've got, you know, an attitude that works towards that. They've got the right priorities. They've got, they're taking care of or making changes to any learned behavior that's a problem. How do you help them stay accountable? So here at ATI, one of the things I really encourage all of my shop owners to do, again, either the shop owner or manager, but the direct supervisor of the team members, is one-on-ones. A one-on-one is exactly what it sounds like. It is an appointment you have with that employee, and I really strongly encourage it to be at least once a week. I have shops that do it monthly, but the biggest thing is get them started, just do them. And during that one-on-one, this is not a long, drawn-out meeting. It really should stick within 15-minute meetings, maybe a little longer in the beginning, just as you're setting the plan of action. What is the purpose of this meeting? But during those meetings, you're going to do several things. The first thing is you're setting those goals. You're setting those expectations. You're having that conversation with the employee about what you would like to see them achieve, and getting feedback from them about what do they need in order to achieve that. Okay, and you're tracking it. I encourage both of you have a notebook for these meetings. You have one for each one of your employees. Each employee has a notebook, and that's their one-on-one notebook. When you have this meeting together, you each bring your notebook, and in that notebook, the goals that you've agreed to are in there, the expectations that have been set, and you're tracking it on a regular basis. You're going over the progress that they've made on a weekly or a monthly basis, however often you're having these one-on-ones. Some of the other things, though, that you're going to do is you give feedback, and you'll see it says ABC under feedback. So let me explain what ABC stands for. ABC is just to help you remember these 3 questions, these 3 things that you want to make sure you cover, particularly if someone's struggling to achieve one of those goals, one of those expectations. So the first one is, A is for appreciation. There is something this person is doing well. There is something that you can say that's positive, that relates to their performance, behavioral changes, their attitude. You know, if I have a technician who's struggling in a particular area, but they come to work every single day with a smile on their face, they're ready to go, they're on time, I have something to appreciate about them. And I'm gonna make sure that I point out to them, I really appreciate that every day you are here on time and ready to work right when we're ready to open. In fact, you're often here early enough that you have all the bay doors open so that everybody else can just get right to it. Thank you so much for being that person. Thank you for that. The B stands for be real. One of our fundamentals actually is speak the unvarnished truth, and that's really what be real is about. It's not being blunt or nasty or aggressive, but it is being honest when there's something that's not going well. So for example, you know, thank you for this. It looks like we're really struggling to hit your billable hours goal each week. And you know, I have to be honest, I'm disappointed that that you're struggling with this, and I'm sure you are too. But we're going to keep working on it. We're going to keep working towards hitting that goal. So I've been honest and open with them. I've been real. I'm not happy that they're not achieving one of their goals. I do think that letting them know how it makes you feel does make a difference. I know for those of you who are gentlemen watching this, that may be something you're like, I don't see why that has to be done. There does seem to be a correlation between being able to understand and empathize with how it's making the owner feel and identifying that it's also making that employee feel that. I'm disappointed, I'm frustrated, I'm at a loss. Chances are the employee is feeling one of those as well. They want to achieve those goals, and something is a roadblock in their way. So the C is curiosity. And when I say curiosity, what I want you to think is open-ended question. It's not a yes or no question. It's something that literally starts with the words, I'm curious. John, I'm curious. What can we do differently moving forward to help you get closer to achieving that goal? So 2 things happen here. One, because it's not a yes or no, it really requires some thought on the other person's part to answer it. But it also puts, again, the accountability to achieve the goal back on that team member. You are asking them, what can we do? What do they need in order to get closer to achieve that goal? And we expect them to give you an answer. We expect them to be able to tell you what's keeping them from achieving it, what they're going to do differently so that you have a different outcome, you have a different report when you have your next one-on-one. Okay, and then last but not least, well, actually next we have the action plan, which really is kind of what I just described. Once you have that information from that team member about what they believe is going to help them get where they need to go, that's where your action plan is. So maybe they've given you some input on, I just need you to help me stay focused during the day. Great. Give me an idea of what that looks like. How would you like me to help you stay focused? And based on what they tell you, that becomes the action plan. We haven't changed the goals. We haven't lowered the bar, but we've asked them, tell me what you need from me to achieve the goal, or tell me what you're going to change in your own behavior to get closer to achieving that goal. And then, of course, the expectation is next time we meet, we will see that you've made progress. And then you'll see on here progress report 2 times a year. Progress report is a lot more in depth. I'm doing a full evaluation of this employee, what they've done well on, what they still need to grow in. We would be going over compensation. We would be going over any changes to your benefits package, making sure we have all up-to-date documentation for them just on the employment side. That's really what the progress report twice a year is. It's not a one-on-one. It could be done at the same time points that you do your one-on-one, but twice a year we're doing something a little more in depth with them. Okay, so that's one of the ways that you can help your employees stay accountable. And then the second one, this is the one that's not fun. Well, it can be a very good and positive experience, but a performance issue meeting is when something really bad has happened, when an employee has really messed up. They damaged a customer's vehicle. They didn't put a vehicle on the lift properly. They made a mistake that based on their skill level should not have happened, and it's costing the shop money. It's costing you money. It's maybe costing you money because it's a comeback that shouldn't have been a comeback. And so now that technician has to make it right, and you can't give them work that's billable time because they have to stay focused over here. So there's multiple situations that would be like that, but this is very specific. This is something that has to be addressed. I'm going to strongly encourage you that if it's something serious enough that it was a safety issue that got you angry, got you mad, we don't deal with it in that moment. You can say, we will discuss it tomorrow if you have to. But I'm going to recommend that you take the time for everybody's emotions to come down, everybody's adrenaline to come down, deal with what you absolutely have to deal with in that very moment to make sure everyone is safe, the vehicles are secure, but do not have this performance issue meeting while everyone is in a high state of upset. Give it 24 hours if you have to. If it happened in the morning, maybe by the end of the day you can address it, but make sure that you're at a place where you're not making decisions just on emotion. We need to have this calm down a bit. So the first thing, of course, that we're going to cover is what went wrong. What went wrong? I need input on why there was an issue, and it needs to be documented. You need to document what the error was in detail, not just verbal. Did they not set the lift right? Did they not pay attention to what was going on behind them? You know, you need to have a good, clear understanding of why this happened, and it needs to be in writing. I believe it's very important that you communicate the impact this had on the team. So I talked a little bit about the fact that it's an error on the technician's part that resulted in a comeback. Let's say that they've now got to do the work over because of this mistake, and that's 3 hours that we can't give them any other work, that we're going to take a loss. We're going to have to eat the part because maybe what they've done resulted in damage to that new part. It's very important that they know the impact that it had on the shop as a whole. We've got to reconfigure work for the day because now they're not available. Or we're going to have to pay for damage to a customer's vehicle as a result of just not paying attention. Maybe, heaven forbid, that it resulted in injury of another employee. This is very important that we have these specific impacts also written down. We want that employee to understand the impacts that this mistake had. Now, this is supposed to be a fairly serious situation. This is not, a small blurb, man, don't do it again, get it right. But if it's something that you've addressed verbally more than twice, it needs to be in writing. So next on here says counseling versus warning. And that's really where you decide at what level you need to put this in writing. So if it happens again, will you terminate the employee? If it happens again, will they need to go look for another job? If the answer is yes, this is a warning. There's no wiggle room here. If whatever occurred absolutely cannot happen again, or they will no longer be employed at your shop, that's a warning. If it's not to that level of seriousness, if it happened again, you would walk through the same process, but you would not be terminating their employment, then that's counseling. That's having this conversation with them. Yes, I'm still documenting it, but it's not the same consequences. It's not the same level of concern. And then last but not least is defined consequences. So defined consequences would have in writing, if it happened again, that would be termination of employment. If it's going to result in go home, have a day off with pay, to think about this, to make sure it doesn't happen again, then that's the consequences. If it's going to be a loss of any kind of privileges in the shop. So I have a lot of shops where one of the benefits of employment is the technicians are permitted to use the shop outside of regular business hours to work on their personal vehicles. Maybe they lose that privilege as a result of whatever the situation was that we're having this meeting about. So in writing, what are going to be the consequences? And here's the thing that I really want you to understand, because a lot of times when I first say we need to set expectations, we need to help the employee stay accountable, we need to do these things that you see on this screen. I have shop owners who will say, I can't do that, they'll quit. And I want you to understand, people who are high performance employees who want to do a great job, who want to work for a business that really has a huge impact in the community, has a great vision, wants to see them grow, wants to help them grow, those people are going to love this change. They're going to embrace it. The people who may not like it are probably the people that are not a good fit for your team anyway. You've been tolerating bad behavior, you've been tolerating a bad attitude, maybe you've even been tolerating really low levels of productivity, and this is going to be uncomfortable for them. But I can tell you, I rarely have any technician or service advisor quit because the owner is now setting expectations and asking people to be accountable. What I find is productivity improves. What I find is sales improve. So instead of it having a negative impact, it has a very positive impact, because now your employees know what you expect from them. And if you present this in the way that I've encouraged you to present it, it comes across as very positive. It comes across as you truly do want them to be successful, and you want to know what they need in order to achieve that level of success. That's really what I had for you today. And if anyone has any questions, please take this opportunity to share. Well, I'm going to assume no questions means I just blew you away.
It was an excellent presentation. Thank you for that. And I mean, I don't own a shop, but I learned a lot, and it's very important to take those steps and consider each employee as their own individual, not just a number, and make sure that they are getting the respect that they deserve and being held accountable and presented with those specific expectations. I enjoyed that. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
I'm working on the one-on-ones. I sometimes I get lax on doing it, so I got to hold myself accountable for that.
Yeah, yes, you have to hold yourself accountable to make sure you do the one-on-ones. And really what I encourage is you make those hard and fast appointments. They get put on your calendar. They get put on your employee's calendar that every Tuesday morning at 8:15 is my one-on-one with John. Every Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. is my appointment with Catherine. And literally, the building has to be burning down or someone's on vacation for you to not have that meeting. That's how important they really need to become. One, because of everything we covered here, but the other part of that is I find that when the owner makes those a high priority and makes it clear to the employees what the purpose of those meetings are, as you get comfortable with them, usually, if you're doing them weekly, I'm going to say somewhere between 4 and 6 weeks, when they realize that, hey, this is real, this is something that is serious and something that they really are trying to help me get better. What I find is right around that 4 to 6 week mark, the team member, the employee, starts really being a lot more open and honest during those meetings. They will share with you the things that they see that could be improved in the shop. They begin to feel a lot more comfortable telling you about the things that they're not confident with, that they need some help with, that they need some training with. So they become very effective. Up front, when you first start them, they're a little awkward. They're awkward for both of you because chances are neither one of you have worked anywhere that did those before. So in the beginning, feels a little weird for both the owner and for the employee. But as you get more confident in it, as you do them faithfully, as they realize this is a priority for you, they become more and more open, honest, and engaged in that process.
Okay, I'll see you later. Bye-bye.
All right, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And thank you, Charlene, again, for that awesome webinar. I will put out the full recording this afternoon, and I will send it to you. And I hope everybody has a good rest of their day.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. Have a great one.